She was just a shy waitress serving drinks at a royal ball she never belonged to. Until one simple act of kindness stopped the music, froze the crowd, and made every immortal eye turn toward her. Because the words she signed, words meant only for the lonely queen, weren't just greetings. They were the language of kings, a tongue lost for 300 years. And from that moment, the waitress who spoke the forgotten language became the spark that could end a war between humans and vampires, or reignite it forever. This is the story of the waitress who spoke the forgotten tongue. Before this story begins, comment your location. It's beautiful seeing how far these stories reach. Lena Marquez pressed her palms against the tray until her knuckles turned white. The silver rattled with every tremor of her hands. All around her, the ballroom of the Hotel du Crimson shimmered like a dream made of mirrors, crystal chandeliers, velvet banners, and people who looked far too perfect to be real. "Keep your head down, no eye contact," her supervisor had whispered when she clocked in. "And for heaven's sake, don't speak to them unless they speak first." Now she understood why. The guests glided rather than walked. Their laughter carried a strange echo, like voices from inside a cave. Some wore masks shaped like crescent moons, others had eyes that caught the light like a cat's. Lena told herself it was the champagne haze, the trick of too many candles. She threaded through the crowd, dodging swirling gowns and polished shoes. The smell of roses and old wine mixed in the air. Every nerve in her body begged her to run, but the thought of another unpaid rent month kept her feet moving. At the far end of the ballroom, a string quartet played a slow waltz. Near the wall sat an older woman in a gown of midnight blue. She looked out of place alone, her posture regal but sad. 4 guards in matching crimson uniforms stood behind her, faces blank. Lena paused. Something about the woman tugged at her heart. Maybe it was the way she looked around, as if the music belonged to a world she could no longer hear. Then Lena saw her hands move, graceful, deliberate motions in the air. Sign language. The guard she signed to simply nodded and turned away. Lena felt a twist in her chest. The woman's expression sank, loneliness written plainly across her face. She just wants someone to understand her, Lena thought. Her grandmother had been deaf. Those same helpless gestures were the last memory she had of her. "Don't do it," she whispered to herself. "Don't get involved." But her feet ignored her. Balancing the tray against her hip, she approached. The guard stiffened immediately. "This section is private," one warned. Lena swallowed. "I just wanted to deliver champagne." The older woman turned toward her, calm and curious. Up close, her silver hair gleamed like frost under candlelight, and her eyes, pale, sharp gray, missed nothing. Lena set the tray down on a small table. Then, before she could overthink it, she raised her hands and signed slowly. "Good evening, Your Grace. May the night bring you peace." The woman froze. The air itself seemed to stop moving. For a heartbeat, the entire ballroom went silent, the music, the conversation, everything. One of the guards hissed, "What did you just do?" Lena blinked, panic flooding her. "I just said hello." But the older woman's eyes filled with tears. She stood with surprising strength and signed back with trembling hands. "You speak the silent tongue." Lena frowned. "The what?" Before anyone could explain, a voice like velvet over steel cut through the still air. "Who taught you that language?" The crowd parted. A man walked toward them, tall, in a black suit that seemed to swallow the light. His face looked carved from shadow and symmetry. His eyes burned amber. Lena forgot how to breathe. "King Darius Voss," someone whispered. "The ruler of the Crimson Court." Darius stopped a few steps away. "Answer me." His tone wasn't loud, but it filled every corner of the ballroom. "Who taught you those signs?" Lena's voice shook. "My grandmother. She kept journals. I only learned a few phrases, formal greetings." The queen, because there was no mistaking the woman's crown now, touched Darius's arm and signed quickly. He glanced at her, his expression softening for an instant. Then he turned back to Lena. "Everyone out," he said. The orchestra dropped their bows. Guests scattered without question. In less than a minute the hall emptied, leaving Lena alone with the king, the queen, and their guards. The weight of his gaze pressed on her like gravity. "You will explain," he said quietly. But not here. 2 guards stepped forward. Escort her to the east wing. Lena's knees almost gave out. Wait, I didn't. Darius's eyes flashed. Now. As the guards led her through towering doors, she looked back once. The Queen watched her go, one hand lifted in a small sign Lena barely caught. Do not fear. But fear was all she had left. The room they brought her to could have belonged to a movie set, high ceilings, crimson curtains, a fireplace large enough to stand in. A single chair waited in the center like an interrogation seat. Lena stood behind it, heart hammering. She counted the seconds in silence. When the door finally opened, Darius Voss entered alone. Up close, he was even more intimidating. He didn't walk, he flowed, every step precise. His amber eyes seemed to glow faintly, though the only light came from the fire. Sit, he said. Lena obeyed. The chair was softer than it looked, but her muscles stayed tight. He circled her once, hands clasped behind his back. Name: Lena Marquez. Age: 22. Occupation: she managed a nervous laugh. Waitress. At least, I was. His gaze flicked toward her trembling hands. And your grandmother? She was Rosa Marquez. She died 5 years ago. His expression changed. Rosa Marquez. He turned toward the mantel, where a single candle flickered. We have records of that name. What kind of records? Lena asked. He faced her again. Employment. She served this court as a linguist more than 30 years ago. That's impossible. My grandmother worked at a university. Darius's tone sharpened. She lied to protect you. She vanished from our archives after stealing classified materials. The Royal Lexicon documents concerning the silent tongue. Lena shook her head. She wasn't a thief. Then explain how you spoke words lost for 3 centuries. I just wanted to be polite, she whispered. The Queen looked lonely. For a moment, the faintest trace of surprise crossed his face, as if kindness were a foreign language, too. Then the hardness returned. The Queen is my mother, he said. She lost her hearing nearly a century ago. The language you used, the silent tongue, was created for our bloodline alone. Every sign carries power, oaths, and secrets. Mortals who learned it were removed. Lena's stomach dropped. Removed. Executed. He leaned closer. So you see my problem. Before she could respond, the door opened and the Queen entered, escorted by her guards. She moved with regal calm, her hands already forming swift, elegant signs. Darius translated aloud as she spoke. My son, she signed, this girl means no harm. She offered me the first real conversation I have had in decades. Darius sighed through his teeth. Mother, she spoke a forbidden code. And yet, the Queen continued, she knew the formal blessing perfectly. The language has chosen her. Perhaps we should listen before we judge. The fire crackled. Darius rubbed a hand over his jaw. You always did have a taste for lost causes. She has kind eyes, the Queen signed, smiling faintly. Lena felt warmth rise to her cheeks. Thank you, Your Majesty, she said softly, then hesitated before signing the same words. The Queen's expression brightened like dawn. Darius caught the exchange, something unreadable flickering across his features, annoyance, curiosity, maybe both. Finally, he straightened. Very well. Until we understand what she knows, she remains here under royal supervision. Supervision? Lena repeated. My mother's protection, he corrected. You will stay in guest quarters. Guards will ensure your safety. His voice cooled. And your silence. What if I say no? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Darius leaned close enough that she could see the faint silver in his eyes. Then I would have to decide whether you are a threat. I do not enjoy that kind of decision. Lena swallowed hard. I'll stay. Wise choice. The Queen touched her son's sleeve, signing something private. He nodded once, then left the room without another word. When the doors closed, the Queen smiled gently. She signed, Do not be afraid, child. The court is cruel, but my son is fair. Lena managed a shaky nod. I hope so. The Queen reached out and squeezed her hand. Her touch was warm despite the chill in the air. "Rest now," she signed. "We will talk again soon." Later that night, guards escorted Lena to her assigned quarters. The halls of the castle felt alive, whispering with history. Oil paintings watched her with ancient eyes. Her room was larger than her entire apartment back home, luxury she couldn't enjoy because her heart still raced. On the dresser lay her belongings from the restaurant, her purse, her grandmother's old journal, even her phone. No signal, of course. She sat on the edge of the bed, running her fingers over the journal's worn cover. The faded handwriting on the first page read, "For my granddaughter, so she will never forget that words can change worlds." When she tilted the book, something rattled inside the spine. Curious, she pried gently until the binding loosened and a folded slip of parchment slid out. The paper was old, yellowed, written in symbols she didn't recognize. At the top was a crest, a rose entwined with silver thorns. Beneath it, a line in elegant script. The silent oath sworn between the house of blood and the line of words. Lena stared at it, confusion swirling with dread. House of blood. Line of words. A knock shattered her thoughts. She jumped to her feet. Yes. The door creaked open. Darius stood there, shadows clinging to his shoulders. "You're awake." Lena's pulse skipped. "You didn't knock." "I did," he said evenly. "You didn't hear." He stepped inside, eyes flicking to the journal still in her hands. "May I?" She hesitated, then handed it over. He examined the pages, his expression tightening as he recognized the old script. "Your grandmother wrote in our tongue. She loved languages," Lena said quietly. "Said everyone carries its own kind of magic." She wasn't wrong. He closed the book. "But some magic should stay buried." "I didn't ask to be part of this," she blurted. "I was just doing my job. And yet you spoke a greeting that hasn't been heard aloud in centuries." He met her gaze. Fate doesn't ask permission either. For a moment they stood in silence, the air between them charged with something Lena couldn't name: fear, curiosity, maybe the strange pull of two people standing at the edge of a story neither chose. Finally he handed back the journal. "Rest, Miss Marquez. Tomorrow we begin asking the real questions." As he turned to leave, she found her voice. "Why me?" He paused at the door, half in shadow. "Because you woke something that was meant to sleep forever." The door closed softly behind him. Lena looked down at the parchment still spread across her bed. The ink shimmered faintly in the firelight, as if alive. Somewhere in the distance, the castle's great clock struck midnight, and a chill wind slipped through the curtains. She traced the silver-thorned crest with her fingertip and whispered to the empty room, "Grandma, what did you get me into?" The flame in the hearth flickered once, twice, then steadied, casting the shape of the rose crest on the wall like a silent promise. The next morning arrived too soon. Pale light filtered through the heavy curtains, spilling over the marble floor of Lena's room. She barely slept, her mind turning over the night's events like a wheel that refused to stop. A soft knock came. When she opened the door, the Queen's attendant, a gentle woman named Myra, waited with a breakfast tray. "Her Majesty invites you to her garden after you eat," she said kindly. The garden lay within a glasshouse attached to the eastern wing. Warm air met Lena's face as she entered, fragrant with roses and something faintly metallic. Queen Selene sat among the blooms, embroidering in silence. When she saw Lena, her face brightened and her hands moved in graceful signs. "You came. Good." Lena smiled awkwardly and signed back, "Thank you for inviting me." They sat together beneath climbing vines. Birds fluttered through shafts of sunlight, and for the first time since last night, Lena felt a thread of calm. Selene's fingers danced again. "I owe you an apology. My son can be severe. The crown has hardened him." "He was only protecting you," Lena answered aloud, adding a few signs to make sure she was understood. Selene's eyes gleamed with amusement. "You're learning quickly." "I had a good teacher," Lena said, touching her grandmother's journal. At the mention, the Queen's expression softened. "Rosa. I knew her, long ago." Lena froze. "You knew her?" Selene nodded slowly. "She was not simply a scholar. She served as royal linguist." We trusted her with our deepest history. Then one night, she disappeared. The court whispered that she stole from us. She didn't, Lena said quickly. My grandmother was the kindest woman alive. Celine reached out, covering Lena's trembling hand with her own. I believe you. But others do not. And in this court, belief can be as dangerous as truth. Before Lena could reply, the glasshouse door opened. Darius entered, tall and dark against the morning light. Even the flowers seemed to lean away from him. Mother, he said in a tone that sounded like both greeting and warning. Celine smiled faintly and signed, we were speaking of Rosa. I assumed as much. He turned his eyes to Lena. I spent the night reviewing records. Your grandmother worked here under the name Rosa Chen Marquez. She was dismissed after 2 years, accused of stealing a document called the Royal Lexicon. What was in it? Lena asked. Everything about the silent tongue, he replied. Grammar, oaths, battle codes. It was the backbone of our command network. Without it, our history fractured. He paced slowly along the path, the morning light sliding over his black coat. When the lexicon vanished, wars began that should never have existed. Thousands died. Lena felt cold. You think my grandmother caused that? I think she was part of something larger than herself. Celine's hands moved sharply. Do not frighten the girl, Darius. He exhaled, glancing at his mother with weary affection before turning back to Lena. Whatever your grandmother took, it vanished with her. Until last night. He looked pointedly at the parchment she carried. Lena hesitated, then unfolded it. This was hidden in her journal. He stepped closer, eyes scanning the faded text. The symbol of the rose and thorns shimmered faintly. It bears the seal of the first Crimson King, he murmured. It should not exist. What does it say? He traced a line of writing with one gloved finger. An oath between the House of Blood and the line of words. Your ancestors' family and mine. It speaks of peace, an alliance between vampires and humans. Lena's breath caught. That's impossible. Vampires weren't even supposed to be real until last week. Impossible things are our specialty, Darius said. His voice softened. Your grandmother must have known this would resurface one day. A sudden sound interrupted them, a low, metallic chime echoing through the hallways. Darius stiffened. Council summons, he said. They demand to know why the silent tongue was spoken at last night's ball. Celine frowned. They will twist this against the girl. I'll handle it, Darius replied. To Lena he added, do not leave this wing. And tell no one what you found. When he left, the room seemed to dim. Celine turned back to the flowers, her expression troubled. Be careful, my dear. The court feeds on secrets, not blood. Hours passed. The sun slid west, turning the glasshouse gold. Restless, Lena wandered through the adjoining corridor lined with portraits, past kings and queens painted in oils so vivid their eyes followed her. One portrait stopped her cold, a younger Darius beside a woman who looked exactly like her grandmother. Her breath caught. Beneath the frame, a nameplate read Rosa Chen, Royal Linguist. A sound behind her made her spin. A servant stood there, tall and pale, his expression unreadable. His Majesty requests your presence in the council chamber, he said. But he told me not to. The council insists, the man interrupted. Heart-pounding, Lena followed. The council chamber was vast, its domed ceiling painted with constellations. 12 figures sat around a marble table. All of them turned when Lena entered. Their eyes gleamed with predatory interest. King Darius stood at the head. Miss Marquez, he said, his voice echoing. You are here because the council demands clarification. Do you understand what you did last night? I greeted your mother, she said carefully. That's all. A woman with crimson hair leaned forward. Using the silent tongue, she said. A language forbidden to mortals. How did you learn it? My grandmother taught me. Murmurs rippled through the room. Darius raised a hand for silence. Enough. The Queen has claimed her under royal protection. That claim is absolute. Protection or favoritism? Another counselor asked coolly. Are we to believe this human stumbled upon a royal code by chance? Darius's gaze turned sharp. Are you questioning my mother's authority? The man subsided, muttering. Lena stood rigid under the weight of their stares. I don't know anything about your politics, she said. I'm not a spy. A convenient claim, someone sneered. Celine's voice cut through the noise. She had entered silently and now signed with quick, fierce movements. Darius translated, his voice steady. My mother reminds you that kindness is not treason. The council fell quiet. After a long pause, Darius said, this discussion is over. Miss Marquez remains under my mother's care until further notice. He signaled to the guards. Escort her to the East Tower. Ensure she's comfortable. The words sounded kind, but Lena heard the finality in them. The East Tower was still a cage, no matter how soft the bed. The guards led her up a spiral staircase that seemed to twist forever. Her room there overlooked the river, grand, silent, isolated. She dropped onto the bed, exhaustion and fear mixing like poison. Hours later, when the castle slept, she lit a single candle and opened her grandmother's journal again. She needed to understand why Rosa had risked everything. Between pages of linguistic notes, she found tiny marks in the margins, dots and dashes forming a pattern. When she tilted the paper toward the light, faint words appeared, treaty broken. Betrayal from within. A chill ran through her. From within. The vampires had turned on their own. She kept reading, tracing each coded sentence. Dark faction staged attack. Humans blamed. Alliance destroyed. It felt like touching a live wire. Her grandmother hadn't stolen secrets, she'd been running from murderers. Footsteps outside broke her concentration. She quickly blew out the candle and hid the papers under her pillow. The door creaked open, not a guard this time, but Darius himself. He stood in the doorway, expression unreadable. You ignored my instruction, he said quietly. You went to the council chamber. They sent for me, Lena protested. I didn't want to. I know. He closed the door behind him, lowering his voice. You shouldn't have been summoned. Some on the council are not loyal. They see you as leverage. Leverage for what? For power they don't deserve. He walked to the window, looking out at the river. There are old factions in this court. The ones who destroyed the treaty your grandmother tried to protect. Lena hesitated, then took a chance. The Dark family? He turned sharply. How do you know that name? It's in her notes. She drew a breath. They framed the humans, didn't they? To start a war. Darius stared at her, then at the faint glow beneath her pillow. Show me what you found. She handed over the journal, the parchment hidden within its pages. He read quickly, his expression changing from disbelief to fury. This could change everything, he murmured. If the council knew the truth. They'd silence it, Lena finished. Just like they silenced her. He met her eyes. For the first time, she saw uncertainty in him. You may be right. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. The scent of rain drifted in through the open window. Lena asked softly, why do you care so much? About a language, a treaty, a human waitress you barely know? His answer was quiet. Because my ancestors built their kingdom on the ashes of a lie. And you just handed me the proof. Lightning flared, outlining his face in silver. For a heartbeat he looked less like a monster and more like a man burdened by centuries. He closed the journal and returned it to her. Keep it hidden. Trust no one but my mother. What about you? He gave a short, humorless smile. Especially not me. He turned to leave, but before he reached the door, she said, my grandmother risked her life for the truth. Maybe it's time someone finished what she started. He paused, hand on the handle. You may find that truth demands a higher price than you're willing to pay. Then he was gone, leaving the scent of storm air behind him. The night deepened. Rain hammered the windows, thunder shaking the tower. Sleep refused to come. Lena sat at the window, watching lightning flicker over the city. She remembered the Queen's gentle hands, Darius's hard eyes, the way the court whispered whenever she passed. Somewhere below, secrets centuries old were moving again. Her grandmother had written once, Words can change worlds. Lena whispered to the darkness, then let them. The night deepened. Rain hammered the windows, thunder shaking the tower. Sleep refused to come. Lena sat at the window, watching lightning flicker over the city. She remembered the Queen's gentle hands, Darius's hard eyes, the way the court whispered whenever she passed. Somewhere below, secrets centuries old were moving again. Her grandmother had written once, "Words can change worlds." Lena whispered to the darkness, then let them. The storm did not leave with the night. It lingered into morning, grey clouds pressing over the castle like a warning. Lena woke to the sound of bells, low, solemn tones that made the windows tremble. She dressed quickly, nerves already alive under her skin. The guards outside her door didn't speak, only nodded when she stepped into the hallway. The castle corridors looked different in daylight, less mysterious, more oppressive. Portraits watched her like silent judges. At the end of the corridor, the Queen's attendant waited. "Her Majesty requests you in the West Study," she said. Lena followed. When the doors opened, warmth greeted her, candles, books, a fire that filled the air with the smell of cedar. Queen Selene sat in an armchair, hands folded, her silver hair loose around her shoulders. She smiled as Lena approached. "You slept poorly. How could you tell?" Lena signed back with a weak grin. "Your eyes." Lena sighed. "It's hard to sleep when you might be executed for saying hello." Selene chuckled softly, then grew serious. "My son will protect you, but not all here share his restraint. The council demands another hearing tonight. They say your presence threatens the secrecy of our kind." Lena's stomach turned. "Another hearing? Why?" The Queen's hands hesitated before she answered. "They claim you may be a spy for the Silver Council, human hunters who want to expose us." "That's ridiculous," Lena said aloud. "I didn't even believe vampires were real until last week. Truth matters little to those who fear it." The Queen rose, gliding to a shelf lined with old books. She pulled one down and placed it in Lena's hands. "This is a fragment of what once was the royal lexicon. It survived the fires centuries ago. Read the page I marked." Lena opened it. The script was ancient but elegant, and beside it were diagrams of hand signs, familiar shapes she had seen in her grandmother's notes. "It's the silent tongue," she whispered. "Yes," Selene signed. "But you must understand, these signs are not just communication. Each carries power. When a royal speaks through the silent tongue, the words bind in blood and magic. That is why mortals were forbidden to learn it. Those who broke the rule could command forces they did not understand." Lena frowned. "Then why did my grandmother write about it at all?" The Queen met her gaze, sadness deepening in her eyes. "Because she believed knowledge was stronger than fear. And perhaps, because she loved one of us." Lena blinked. "She what?" Selene nodded slowly. "The first king, Lucien Voss, was not like the others. He saw humans as equals, not prey. The linguist he trusted most was a mortal woman, a Marquez, your ancestor. Together they built the first alliance between our kinds. It ended when he was murdered." A chill moved through Lena. "By who?" The Queen's signs became sharper. "A rival faction, the Darks. They wanted domination, not peace. They slaughtered the human envoys and blamed mankind for betrayal. Since then, no human has been allowed within these walls. So my grandmother found proof," Lena murmured. "And they killed her for it." Selene's silence was answer enough. Before Lena could speak again, the doors opened. Darius entered, cloak damp from rain. His expression was grave. "Mother. Miss Marquez." He inclined his head. "The council grows restless. They've summoned us all to the Grand Hall tonight." "What do they want?" Selene asked aloud, though her hands mirrored the question. Darius's jaw tightened. "A demonstration. They want to test her blood." Lena stiffened. "My blood? It will prove whether you're human or something else," he said. "But I know the council, they'll twist it to serve their purpose. So what happens if it says I'm just human? Then they'll call it inconclusive," he said bitterly. "They want a reason to brand you dangerous." The Queen stood. "I will not allow it." Darius's voice softened. Mother, invoking royal law again could start a rebellion. Celine's eyes hardened. Then let it. I will not see another innocent executed for kindness. Lena's throat felt dry. There has to be another way. Darius looked at her. There is truth. You found something last night, didn't you? In the journal. Lena hesitated, then nodded. Yes. A hidden message. It said the Dark family staged the first war and blamed humans. He gave a grim smile. Then we have leverage. That evening, thunder rolled again over the castle. The grand hall shimmered with torchlight. Rows of nobles filled the balcony, their pale faces turned toward the dais. At the center stood the council, a ring of powerful vampires draped in scarlet robes. Darius and his mother occupied the highest seats. Lena was placed in a chair of carved oak, surrounded by guards. The council leader, an austere man named Lord Brax, spoke first. Miss Marquez, you are accused of possessing forbidden knowledge and consorting with human factions opposed to our kind. How do you plead? I don't even know what consorting means, Lena muttered under her breath. Not guilty, Darius said for her, his tone cutting. Brax continued, ignoring him. The council demands a purity test. Her blood will reveal her true nature. Celine rose at once, signing furiously. Darius translated with a glare. The queen invokes royal protection. Overruled, Brax snapped. The protection of a mother cannot outweigh the safety of the realm. Darius's hands curled into fists. You would defy your own law. The law bends for necessity, another counselor said smoothly. Unless you have evidence proving this human's innocence. Darius turned to Lena. The journal, he whispered. She pulled it from her sleeve and set it on the table. This belonged to my grandmother. It contains proof that the Dark family orchestrated the war 300 years ago. Gasps filled the room. Brax sneered. A mortal's diary? Hardly proof. It's written in the royal cipher, Darius countered. A code only court linguists and royalty could use. Brax's eyes narrowed. Then we shall examine it. If it is false, she dies. If it is true, you will answer for exposing state secrets. Before Darius could protest, guards seized the journal and carried it away. Celine stepped forward, fury in her gestures. You shame this court. The chamber erupted in argument, voices rising, echoing off marble and gold. Amid the chaos, Lena felt Darius's hand close around hers. It wasn't a gesture of comfort, it was an unspoken vow. When silence finally returned, Brax spoke again. Until the council concludes its study, the human is confined to her quarters under watch. The blood test remains pending. Lena's heart sank, but she met Darius's eyes and saw the promise there. He won't let it happen. Back in her room, she paced restlessly. The storm outside had grown violent, lightning tearing the sky. There was a soft knock. The door opened, revealing Myra, the queen's attendant. You must leave your candle burning tonight, she whispered. It's the signal for protection. Protection from what? From them. Her eyes darted to the window. Some on the council are not waiting for the test. After she left, Lena sat by the fire, trying to steady her thoughts. She was trapped in a castle of predators and politics, with only fragments of truth for a weapon. She stared at the empty space where her grandmother's journal had been. Somewhere inside that book was the key to everything, the silent tongue, the stolen treaty, the blood oath that once united two worlds. Her grandmother had died to hide it. Now it was her turn to survive long enough to reveal it. The next night, the rain had stopped but the air still carried its scent, sharp, electric. Lena was summoned once more, this time to the throne chamber itself. The doors opened to reveal a room transformed. Every candle burned, every noble was present. The council sat in judgment, their faces carved from stone. At the center stood Darius, his expression unreadable. Miss Marquez, Lord Brax intoned. The journal has been examined. Its contents are troubling. Lena's heart jumped. Troubling how? Brax ignored her. The writing reveals secrets of the Crimson Court, rituals, codes, oaths of power. Knowledge no mortal should possess. For that alone, You stand guilty of espionage. That's insane. Lena shouted. I didn't write it. Darius's voice broke through the noise. Enough. He stepped forward, his cape whispering across the floor. The council twists truth to serve its fear. The girl inherited those journals unknowingly. The real question is who murdered Rosa Marquez to keep their crimes hidden. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Brax's face darkened. You accuse your own counsel. I accuse the dark faction, Darius said coldly. And those who still serve them. For a moment, silence reigned. Then a new voice sliced through it, smooth and venomous. Careful, cousin. A tall figure emerged from the shadows, long black coat, eyes like liquid onyx. Lena recognized him from the portrait gallery. Lord Vaughan Dark, Darius said flatly. Vaughan smiled. You always were dramatic, Darius. But blaming my family for a war 3 centuries old. That's beneath even you. He turned to Lena, his gaze appraising. And this must be the miracle human. Tell me, girl, did my cousin tell you how many mortals died because of that little alliance your ancestor built? She died trying to protect peace, Lena said, forcing herself to meet his eyes. Peace, Vaughan repeated with amusement. A lovely word. But peace is an illusion. Someone always pays for it. Enough games, Darius snapped. You knew about the treaty. You knew my ancestor's death wasn't by human hands. Vaughan's smile thinned. Careful what you claim without proof. Proof. Darius's voice rang like steel. The Queen herself remembers your forefathers' treachery. All eyes turned to Celine. She rose slowly, her presence commanding. Her fingers moved with calm precision. I was there, she signed. I saw the smoke over the human embassy. I saw the Dark's insignia on the assassin's blades. Gasps filled the hall. Vaughan's mask cracked for an instant. You would tarnish your late husband's counsel to defend a human girl? Celine's signs were fierce. I defend the truth. The chamber erupted again. Nobles shouted, guards shifted, torches flickered. In the chaos, Lena noticed Vaughan's hand twitch slightly toward his sleeve, a movement too deliberate. Darius, she shouted. His. Too late. Vaughan hurled a small glass sphere to the floor. It shattered in a burst of black smoke that filled the room. Screams echoed as the lights dimmed. When the haze cleared, Vaughan was gone. Darius stood in the center, fury radiating from him. Seal every exit, he roared. No one leaves until he's found. Guards scrambled. The council sat stunned. Brax rose shakily. You see. This is what happens when humans meddle. Be silent, Darius thundered. His eyes glowed bright gold. This isn't her fault. It's yours for letting corruption fester under your noses. He turned to Lena. You're coming with me. It's no longer safe here. Where are we going? To my private vault, he said. The only place Vaughan can't reach. The vault lay deep beneath the castle, behind doors sealed with symbols that glimmered faintly when Darius traced them. Inside, the air felt thick with power. Shelves of ancient scrolls lined the walls. He pulled one down, spreading it across a stone table. This is what the Darks feared most, the original clauses of the Blood Oath. Lena leaned closer. The Alliance Treaty? Yes. It bound my ancestors' bloodline to your family's words. One could not rule without the other. So when the alliance broke, the balance broke too, he finished. They erased every record of it, killed every human linguist, and made sure no one could rebuild it. Lena stared at the parchment, her pulse quickening. Then this is what my grandmother died for. He looked at her, eyes softening. She kept the hope alive. And now, somehow, it's fallen to you. I'm not brave like her, Lena said quietly. I'm just a waitress. You spoke a language no one's heard in 3 centuries, he said. Courage takes many forms. For a long moment, the only sound was the whisper of the fire. Finally Darius straightened. Vaughan won't stay hidden for long. When he moves again, we'll expose him before the whole court. Until then, stay close to my mother. She's the only one I trust completely. Lena nodded, though doubt still lingered. And what about you? Can I trust you? He gave a faint smile. You'll have to decide that for yourself. As he led her out of the vault, Lena glanced once more at the ancient parchment. The rose and thorn crest shimmered faintly, as if alive. Somewhere deep in her bones, she felt the truth awaken: the past wasn't finished with them. And neither was the prophecy. The castle had not slept since Lord Vaughan vanished. The corridors buzzed with rumors, that he'd fled into the catacombs, that he'd transformed into mist, that he'd left behind shadows that moved on their own. Every torch seemed to flicker in fear. Lena stayed mostly in her room under the Queen's orders, guarded day and night. The air was thick with unease. Even the servants whispered that the human guest had brought the old curse back with her. She sat at her desk, turning over the last pages of her grandmother's journal. It was all written in the same looping script, words that looked ordinary until she held them up to the candlelight. Hidden ink glowed faintly, forming symbols she hadn't seen before. Her heart raced. She copied the symbols onto parchment, then compared them to the fragments of the royal lexicon the Queen had shown her. Slowly, a translation emerged. When the tongue of silence is spoken by mortal lips, the veil shall fall, and truth will demand blood. Lena swallowed. Truth will demand blood. She didn't know whether it meant sacrifice or justice, but both sounded dangerous. The door opened softly. Darius entered, his dark cloak brushing the floor. He looked exhausted, shadows under his eyes, jaw tense. "You're still awake," he said. "I couldn't sleep," Lena admitted. "Your castle hums like a beehive. It hums with fear." He sat across from her, eyeing the parchment she'd been working on. "You found something again." She slid it toward him. Hidden writing. A warning, maybe. He read the words silently, then looked up. This line, "Truth will demand blood," appears in the old prophecies of the oath. What does it mean? He hesitated. That when the truth is revealed, someone must pay for the lie that came before. Usually, with a life. Lena felt a chill creep down her spine. "And you think that someone might be me?" His eyes softened. "I won't let that happen." "You can't promise that, Darius," she said quietly. "You're king, but even kings can't stop prophecy." A faint smile touched his lips. "Then maybe I'll just have to rewrite it." For a brief moment, the tension eased. He looked almost human when he smiled, tired, but real. Then a sharp knock shattered the silence. A guard entered. "Your Majesty, scouts have found signs of Lord Vaughan. In the lower city." Darius stood at once. "Prepare the riders." He turned to Lena. "Stay with my mother. Don't open this door for anyone." "I can help," she said quickly. "I can translate your grandmother's cipher." No, his tone was final. "If Vaughan takes you, he takes the last hope of peace with you." Before she could argue, he was gone, the sound of his boots fading into the hall. Lena exhaled shakily and turned back to the desk. She wasn't about to sit still while everyone else risked their lives. She examined the coded notes again, flipping through pages until something odd caught her eye: a small mark drawn beside a map of the castle. It wasn't part of the writing. It looked like a sigil, two circles joined by a single line, hidden in the corner. She recognized it instantly, the crest of the Dark family. Her pulse jumped. Vaughan had access to her grandmother's notes. That meant he'd been part of this from the beginning. Hours passed. The storm outside had calmed, but her nerves hadn't. At some point she must have dozed off in the chair, because a sudden creak woke her. The candle had burned low. Someone was in the room. She sat up sharply. "Who's there?" No answer, just the faint sound of footsteps. Then from the darkness stepped a familiar face: Myra, the Queen's attendant. "Myra, you scared me," Lena said, pressing a hand to her chest. "What are you doing here?" "The Queen sent me," Myra said softly. "She asks you to come to her private chambers." "Now." Lena hesitated. "At midnight. She says it's urgent." Something in Myra's tone made her uneasy, but she followed. The hallways were dim, lit only by wall sconces. The guards who usually stood outside Celine's door were gone. Lena frowned. "Where are the sentries?" "They were dismissed," Myra said quickly. Her Majesty wanted privacy. The doors opened without a sound. The room was empty, no queen, no attendants. "Myra." The attendant turned. Her eyes gleamed red. Before Lena could react, Myra's voice changed deeper, colder. You really should have stayed asleep. Lena stumbled back as Myra's form wavered, shifting like smoke. When the haze cleared, Vaughn stood there, smiling. Hello again, little linguist, he said. You've caused me quite a bit of trouble. Where's Myra? She's resting, he said carelessly. I borrowed her face for convenience. Lena's pulse pounded. What do you want? What I've always wanted, what your grandmother stole. The truth. He stepped closer, eyes glowing like coal. The prophecy isn't about peace, you know. It's about power. The silent tongue isn't just words, it's the key to command every mind bound by royal blood. Speak the right sequence, and even a king will kneel. Lena shook her head. You're lying. Am I? Think of it. Why would your grandmother run if it was just a treaty? Why hide it for generations? He reached into his coat and pulled out a shard of the stolen journal. I have half the code. You have the other half. Together, we can unlock it. Never, she spat. Vaughn's smile widened. Then I'll take it from you. He moved so fast she barely saw him. She threw herself sideways as his hand slashed through the air, knocking over the candle. Flames licked up the curtains. She ran. The corridor blurred around her as alarms rang out. Guards shouted in the distance. She didn't stop until she collided with someone solid, Darius. Lena, he barked, grabbing her shoulders. What happened? Vaughn, he was here, he has part of the code. He looked over her shoulder. Smoke curled from the open chamber doors. Get behind me. They burst back inside, but Vaughn was gone. Only the scent of burning velvet remained. Darius swore under his breath. His hunting the rest of it. Lena clutched his arm. He said the language could control minds. Is that true? His silence was answer enough. That night, Darius ordered the castle sealed. No one in or out. The council was in chaos again, whispers of war spread through every corridor. Lena stayed near the queen, whose calmness was the only anchor left. Vaughn wants to rule, Celine signed. He thinks the prophecy makes him chosen. Then we need to find the rest of the truth before he does, Lena said. Celine nodded slowly. Then we must look where no one dares. Deep beneath the castle lay an ancient library sealed for centuries. They entered it at dawn, guided by torchlight. Dust drifted through the air like ghosts. Celine touched one of the old shelves. This was the Hall of Oaths, she signed. Every royal vow was recorded here before the wars. Lena ran her fingers over the spines of crumbling books. So if the original oath still exists, it will be here. After hours of searching, Lena found a small wooden box tucked behind a row of ledgers. Inside lay a piece of parchment marked with the same rose and thorn crest, and beneath it, a fragment of the prophecy, in both human and vampire script. She read aloud softly, when the line of words meets the line of blood, the night will break, and dawn shall demand a choice. Celine's eyes glistened. Your ancestor and the first king wrote that together. It was meant to unite us. Before Lena could answer, the torches flickered. A sound echoed through the hall, footsteps. Darius appeared, breathing hard. They've found us, he said. Vaughn's loyalists. The queen's gaze hardened. Then let them come. The truth has slept too long. 3 nights later, the council announced a grand masquerade ball to restore unity. It was a lie, everyone knew it. But Darius needed to appear calm, and Vaughn's followers needed a stage. The queen insisted Lena attend. They will expect you, she signed. If you hide, they will assume guilt. Lena stared at the emerald dress laid out for her, silk, beautiful, far beyond anything she'd ever worn. What if they attack me? Then they'll face a queen's wrath, Celine signed with a fierce smile. The ballroom glittered again that night, though the joy was thin, stretched over tension like silk over glass. Masks hid faces, but not suspicion. Darius stood near the dais, speaking quietly with guards. When he saw Lena, his expression softened despite himself. You shouldn't be here, he murmured. Your mother insisted. He sighed. Then stay close to me. The music began, a slow waltz, haunting and elegant. Couples drifted across the floor. Darius offered his hand. It will look less suspicious if we dance. Lena hesitated. I don't exactly know vampire waltzes. Follow my lead. His hand was cool but steady as he guided her into the rhythm. For a few moments, the world seemed to narrow to the movement of their steps, the faint brush of silk and shadow. You're shaking, he said quietly. I'm terrified, she admitted. Good. Fear keeps you alive. Their eyes met briefly, and something unspoken passed between them, trust, maybe, or something dangerously close to it. Then, out of the corner of her eye, Lena saw it, a flicker on the balcony above. A glint of metal. Darius, she gasped. He reacted instantly, pulling her against him just as a silver blade sliced through the air. It missed his throat by inches and embedded itself in the pillar behind them. Chaos exploded. Guests screamed, guards drew weapons. A masked figure vaulted from the balcony, landing silently. Get down, Darius shouted. The attacker lunged again, moving too fast for human eyes. Darius blocked the strike, steel ringing against steel. Lena stumbled back, heart racing. The assassin's mask slipped during the struggle, revealing Myra's face again. No, Lena whispered. But Darius's blade was already in motion. With one swift strike, he disarmed her and tore the mask free. The real Myra fell to the ground, eyes empty, her body a puppet, her mouth moving with Vaughn's voice. Did you think you could stop me with pretty speeches? The voice sneered. The prophecy is mine to fulfill. Then the body collapsed, lifeless. The hall went silent except for the Queen's sharp command for calm. Darius turned to Lena. Are you hurt? She shook her head, breathless. He was controlling her. Through the language. Realization flashed in his eyes. His found part of the oath command. The Queen's voice rose from the dais, firm and resonant. The Dark Line has broken our laws again. Their leader stands accused of treason. Where is he now? Lena asked. Darius answered grimly. If I know Vaughn, he's already on his way to the archives to destroy what we found. He looked around the hall, eyes narrowing on his counselors. No more games. Seal the palace. No one leaves until the Dark family is brought to me. As guards scrambled into action, Lena picked up the fallen mask. The inside was engraved with symbols, silent tongue glyphs spiraling inward toward a single word, awakening. She felt a cold certainty settle in her chest. This wasn't just about old politics anymore. The prophecy wasn't waiting for them, it was already in motion. That night, as the storm gathered again over the crimson spires, Lena stood at her window watching lightning crawl across the sky. In the glass, she saw Darius's reflection behind her. They'll come again, she said softly. Yes, he answered. And next time, they won't miss. Then we stop waiting. She turned to face him. We find the rest of the prophecy before they do. Darius looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Then we move at dawn. The dawn after the masquerade came blood-red. Clouds hung low over the castle like bruises, and the smell of smoke lingered from the night before. Lena hadn't slept. She sat by the window in her borrowed gown, its hem torn where she had tripped during the attack. In the courtyard below, soldiers in crimson armor formed lines, their movements quick and sharp. Every shout, every clang of steel echoed with the king's rage. Darius had declared martial law. From her tower she saw him in the square, issuing orders. His voice carried up through the open air. No one leaves the city. No ship sails, no carriage passes. The Dark name is forbidden until their guilt is proven. The guards saluted, their armor flashing like teeth in the morning light. When Darius finally returned inside, the castle felt different, colder, quieter. He entered her chamber still wearing his sword. His eyes looked like they hadn't rested in years. You shouldn't be standing by the window, he said. The walls have ears. Lena crossed her arms. You've locked down an entire kingdom. I think you've made enough noise for both of us. He didn't smile. One of my guards was found dead in the tunnels beneath the library. The same mark carved on his wrist that Vaughn used on his followers. The same mark that was on the mask, Lena said quietly. He nodded. It means awakening. They're preparing something. She sat, exhaustion washing over her. Maybe we should burn the prophecy, the oath, everything. Let them have their silence. Darius stepped closer. You still don't understand. The prophecy isn't a weapon, it's a balance. Destroy it and both worlds collapse into chaos. Vampires will turn on one another, humans will hunt what's left. We'll be monsters again in truth. Lena rubbed her temples. And what am I in this? The balance. The target. You are the line of words, he said softly. And I am the line of blood. That's what the prophecy means. Together we decide how the world ends, or how it begins again. The words sank into her like cold water. She stared up at him. So that's why they want me. If they kill me, the balance tips to blood alone. Yes, he said. And if they kill me, you'll have a crown you never asked for. For a moment neither spoke. Then he pulled a parchment from his coat. My mother sent this from her chambers. She's deciphered another fragment. Lena unfolded it. The old script glimmered faintly. 2 hearts shall stand before the sun, one bound by truth, one by guilt, and when they speak the oath anew, night will bleed into dawn. She whispered, that sounds like an ending. Or a beginning, he said. Depending on who speaks first. Before she could answer, a horn blared somewhere below. Darius strode to the window. Scouts returning, he said. They've found the Dark's hideout. Then it's over, she asked. He shook his head. It's only over when Vaughn is ash. They met again that night in the war chamber. Maps covered the table, black ink marking the river where Vaughn's followers gathered. The Queen stood with them, her hands moving rapidly as she signed her command. If you go, you must take her, she told her son. The prophecy demands both lines present. If one falls, the other must witness. Mother, that's madness, Darius said. She's not a soldier. She is the reason you still have a kingdom. Lena looked between them. I can help. The treaty fragments, I can read them faster now. Maybe there's something in them that tells us how to stop him. Darius hesitated, then nodded once. Very well. But you stay behind the lines. The march began before dawn. The army moved silently through the fog, crimson cloaks blending with the grey. Lena rode beside Darius on a black horse that snorted clouds into the cold air. She'd never ridden before, and every jolt sent fear through her spine, but she refused to show it. They reached the outskirts of the city as the sun struggled through the clouds. Ruined buildings loomed ahead, an abandoned cathedral turned fortress. Darius raised a hand. This was once a sanctuary, he said. Now it's a nest. He signaled the archers. Shadows slipped between the pillars, silent as smoke. Lena followed him inside. The cathedral's stained glass windows were shattered, the altar scorched. At the center of the nave stood a circle drawn in ash. Symbols, silent tongue glyphs, spiraled inward toward a dark stone. Her breath caught. That's the awakening sigil. Vaughn means to summon something, Darius said. Summon what? Before he could answer, a voice echoed through the hall. Me. Vaughn stepped from the shadows, flanked by his loyalists. His eyes glowed faintly red. You should have stayed on your throne, cousin. The old blood chose me long before you were born. You twist prophecy to suit your greed, Darius said. Greed? No, purpose. The prophecy speaks of a union, blood and words. You're too proud to admit it, but the girl and I together could command every vampire under the sun. Lena's skin prickled. I would never stand with you. Vaughn smiled thinly. You already do. Every time you speak the language, it answers me too. The oath binds all its speakers. He raised his hand. The glyphs on the floor blazed to life. Darius shouted an order, but too late light exploded outward, hurling everyone back. Lena hit the ground hard. The world spun. When her vision cleared, she saw Vaughn standing in the center of the burning circle, his veins glowing like molten silver. Now, he said softly, let the night wake. The ground trembled. From the cracks in the stone, shadowy figures began to rise, pale ghosts of long-dead vampires, bound by the old tongue. Darius seized Lena's arm, dragging her up. Run. They fled through the broken doors as the cathedral collapsed behind them. The army outside looked on in horror as black mist poured from the ruins. "What happened?" a soldier shouted. Darius's voice was grim. "His unleashed the Oath Guardians. We'll need every weapon we have." Lena clutched his sleeve. "We can't fight magic with swords. We have to use the words, the right ones. The ones that bind, not free." He looked at her. "Then find them. Before we all burn." They retreated to the castle by nightfall. The horizon burned with strange light where the cathedral had stood. The air tasted of iron and storm. Lena spent the night in the library, surrounded by old scrolls. The queen sat nearby, helping her search. Candle wax pooled over the table as the hours dragged on. "There's something missing," Lena said, flipping through pages. "Every record ends the same way, the oath shall be renewed by 2 hearts as dawn breaks." But there's no translation for the renewal phrase. Because it was never written, Celine signed. Only spoken once, by Lucien and your ancestor. A vow spoken with both blood and word. Lena frowned. So it wasn't just language. It was love. Love strong enough to create peace and dangerous enough to destroy it. The queen touched her shoulder. "You have your grandmother's courage. You will finish what she began." Before Lena could answer, Darius entered, his cloak dusted with ash. "The spirits have reached the outer wards. They feed on fear. My soldiers can't fight what they can't kill." "Then it's time to end this," Lena said, rising. "The prophecy says we have to meet it, blood and word. Together." He stared at her. "You're saying we speak the oath again?" "Yes. At dawn. In the same place it was first sworn. The cathedral's gone." "Not gone," she said. "Changed. The foundation still stands. That's where we'll finish it." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "You're either brave or insane. Maybe both." A faint smile touched his lips. "Then I'll see you at dawn." The hours before sunrise were filled with tension. Soldiers lined the walls while others prepared the horses. Lena wore a simple cloak instead of a gown this time, the queen's pendant around her neck. Before she left, Celine pressed her hands together in farewell. "Whatever happens, remember, the oath chooses the heart that speaks truth, not the one that seeks power." "I'll remember," Lena said, then signed back, "Thank you for everything." Outside, Darius waited by the gate. He offered his hand to help her mount. "Last chance to run," he said quietly. She took his hand. "Not this time." They reached the ruins just as the horizon blushed with pale light. Smoke coiled from the broken stones. The air hummed with energy. Vaughn was already there, standing atop the shattered altar, shadows swirling around him. "I knew you'd come," he said. "You couldn't resist destiny." "Destiny doesn't belong to you," Darius replied. Vaughn laughed. "You still don't see. The oath can't exist without balance. You and the girl complete it, but you're too afraid to use it." He stepped forward, spreading his arms. "So let me do what you cannot." He began to speak in the silent tongue, low, rhythmic syllables that made the air tremble. The glyphs around the altar blazed again. Lena shouted over the rising wind, his activating the final vow. Darius drew his sword. "Then we stop him." But as he charged, invisible force hurled him back. Vaughn turned to Lena. "You have a choice, mortal. Speak the oath with me, and you'll live forever. Refuse, and this kingdom burns." She steadied her breath. "You're wrong. The oath was never meant to serve blood, it was meant to bind it." She raised her hands, signing the ancient words her grandmother had left hidden between the lines. The air shimmered around her, her voice joining the signs in a rhythm older than time. Vaughn's expression shifted from triumph to alarm. "No, those aren't the words." Light erupted from the ground. Darius struggled to his feet, shouting over the roar, "Finish it." Lena felt the words burn on her tongue. "By word and blood, peace or ruin, we choose the dawn." A blinding flash consumed the altar. The shockwave threw all 3 of them apart. When the light faded, Vaughn was gone, his body dissolved into dust scattered on the wind. Darius staggered toward her. "Lena, are you?" "I'm fine," she said, though her hands still glowed faintly with silver light. He looked around. The ruins were quiet, The air clear. The spirits were gone. It's over, he said softly. She shook her head. No. It's beginning again. The oath renewed itself. He followed her gaze to the horizon. The first sunlight in centuries touched the castle's highest tower, gleaming red and gold. Lena turned to him. What happens now? He smiled faintly. Now we see if peace can survive the day. That morning, the bells of the Crimson Court rang not for war, but for dawn. And somewhere, deep in the ancient halls, the silent tongue whispered once more, no longer a curse, but a promise. The first dawn after the renewal came with an uneasy calm. The sky over the Crimson Court glowed soft gold, yet no one celebrated. The city's streets lay quiet, its people peering from behind shuttered windows as though the sun itself was a stranger. Inside the castle, Lena stood at a tall window, watching the light slide down the towers. The oath's power still hummed faintly in her veins, not painful, but alive, like a distant heartbeat that wasn't entirely her own. She could feel it whenever she closed her eyes, the echo of ancient voices, the lingering heat of the altar, Darius's hand pulling her away from collapsing stone. It was over, but peace never stayed still for long. Behind her, the doors opened. Darius entered in full armor, his cloak trailing behind him. The exhaustion on his face couldn't mask the resolve in his stride. You're awake early, he said. I couldn't sleep, Lena replied, turning. Every time I close my eyes, I see the light from that altar. He nodded grimly. You bound the oath with your voice. It will echo through your blood now, the same way my family carries it through ours. Does that mean? She hesitated. I'm like you now? His lips curved faintly. Not a vampire. But no longer just human, either. Lena looked down at her hands. The faint shimmer from the oath had faded, but she still felt it, a pulse that didn't belong to her alone. What happens to me now? Now. Darius walked toward the window. Now the council convenes. They'll want to know what happened to Vaughn and what the new oath means for the throne. Then they'll come after me again, she said softly. He met her eyes. They can try. For a moment, silence hung between them, heavy with all the things they hadn't said. Then he straightened. My mother wants you present at the assembly. She believes the people should see the one who spoke the oath. It may calm the unrest. And if it doesn't, then it will terrify them enough to listen. The great hall was packed when they entered. Nobles, guards, and counselors filled every tier. Murmurs rippled through the crowd like restless waves. At the dais, Queen Selene sat tall, her expression composed but grave. Her silver eyes flicked toward Lena with something between pride and sorrow. When Darius stepped forward, the hall fell silent. Lord Vaughn Dark is dead, he announced. His treachery ended by the same prophecy he sought to twist. The blood oath has been renewed. A low murmur broke out again, fear, disbelief, anger. Councillor Brax rose to his feet. And what of the human girl who bound it? Is she now our ruler? No, Darius said firmly. She is the keeper of the oath. Without her, there would be no kingdom left to rule. Brax sneered. You expect us to believe that mortal lips spoke power enough to rewrite the ancient pact? She doesn't need your belief, Darius snapped. The proof is in the dawn outside these walls. The queen raised her hand for silence. Her fingers moved gracefully as she signed. The sun rose upon the Crimson Court for the first time in centuries. That is proof enough. Gasps echoed through the room. Some of the older nobles wept quietly. Brax sat slowly, glaring but silent. Selene's gaze turned to Lena. Come forward. Lena obeyed, her heart pounding. Every eye followed her steps. She stopped beside Darius, hands trembling slightly. Selene's voice was calm and regal as she addressed the court. This young woman is of the line of words, descendant of those who first forged peace with our kind. The oath recognized her blood and her courage. She stands as a bridge, not a threat. The crowd whispered again, some nodding, others muttering. Then someone shouted from the back, and what if the oath chooses her over you? What then, King Darius? The hall went dead silent. Darius's expression didn't change. Then I will serve her, as my ancestor served the first linguist. But the oath chooses balance, not crowns. The tension broke like a snapped string. People began speaking all at once: arguments, disbelief, hope. The Queen raised her hand once more. Enough. The council will retire. The court is adjourned until nightfall. Guards cleared the hall. As Lena turned to leave, Darius caught her arm. Don't listen to them, he said quietly. They fear what they can't control. I'm getting used to that, she replied. He smiled, the faintest flicker of warmth breaking through his fatigue. Good. You'll need that. Later, in the Queen's private garden, the three of them met again: Darius, Selene, and Lena, surrounded by whispering roses and silver fountains. Selene sighed, the people will not rest easy. Some worship you as savior, others curse you as omen. It was the same after the first oath. Lena sighed. I never wanted any of this. Destiny rarely asks permission, Selene replied, smiling gently. Darius poured a measure of dark wine into 2 glasses and handed one to Lena. To destiny, then. She took it. Or to surviving it. They drank. The Queen's laughter, soft and musical, filled the air. But the peace didn't last. A messenger arrived at dusk, breathless and pale. Your Majesty, the outer villages are burning. A rebel host approaches under the dark banner. Darius slammed his glass down. Already? We just restored the oath. The rebels claim the oath betrayed their kind, the messenger said. They call themselves the True Blood. Lena's stomach turned. Vaughn's loyalists. Selene's gaze darkened. Then the prophecy has not finished with us yet. The night of the trial began with fire. From the castle's high tower, Lena could see torches moving along the horizon, thousands of them, flickering like an approaching storm. The True Blood army had come to challenge the new dawn. Inside, the council debated endlessly. Some demanded retreat into the mountain crypts, others called for immediate war. Darius stood alone at the head of the table, his patience thin as glass. We run, one noble said. We seal the court underground until they lose interest. You run, Darius said coldly. I fight. Against thousands. Against lies, he snapped. They worship a ghost of power. I won't hide from it. Lena stepped forward. If the oath binds both blood and words, maybe there's a way to stop them without killing anyone. Darius turned to her. How? Let me speak to them. The room erupted in protest. She'll be killed before she reaches the gates. Brax shouted. She's the only one they'll listen to, Darius said quietly. They believe she stole the oath. Let her show them the truth. Lena met his eyes. If this works, maybe it finally ends. If it doesn't, he said, then we end together. Just before midnight, Lena rode out with Darius and a small escort. The battlefield was a sea of torchlight. The rebels stood in ranks, their faces hidden by hoods. At their front rode a woman in black armor, Vaughn's second-in-command. King Darius, she called, her voice sharp. You stand in defiance of the blood that made you. Return the oath or fall. The oath belongs to no one, Darius replied. It binds all of us. The woman sneered. We will not serve a mortal. Lena urged her horse forward. Then you serve darkness, not truth. Murmurs rippled through the rebel lines. She dismounted and walked into the open field, the night wind whipping her cloak. Vaughn lied to you, she shouted. He claimed the prophecy promised power, but it promised peace. He wanted control, not freedom. The woman drew her sword. Silence. Lena lifted her hands, signing as she spoke the words that once rebuilt the world. By word and blood, peace or ruin, we choose the dawn. The air shimmered. The ground beneath them pulsed faintly with silver light, the oath awakening again. Gasps spread through the rebels as they saw the glow spread under their feet, connecting every torch, every soldier, in a circle of pale flame. The oath sees you, Lena said softly. It does not care for sides. It binds those who seek balance. Kneel, and you live. Fight, and the oath will judge you. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the woman in black let her sword drop. One by one, the rebels knelt. The torches flickered lower, bowing with them. Darius exhaled slowly, disbelief and pride mingling in his eyes. It's over, Lena whispered. He dismounted, walking toward her across the glowing field. You spoke the oath again. It wanted to be heard, she said. You risked your life. She smiled faintly. You would have done the same. He stopped in front of her, close enough for his shadow to fall over hers. Perhaps. But you did it first. Behind them, the Queen's banners appeared on the horizon, signaling peace. For the first time since she had entered the Crimson Court, Lena felt the world breathe again. By dawn, the rebellion had disbanded. The survivors laid down their weapons and returned to the villages. In the castle square, Darius addressed the crowd from the balcony, Lena and Celine at his side. The age of darkness is over, he declared. The oath has spoken, and it chose unity. No more blood for pride, no more silence for fear. Cheers rose from below, cautious at first, then swelling into something real. When he turned to Lena, the sunlight framed him in gold. You've done what none of us could. You gave my people hope again. I only reminded them what they already knew, she said softly. He studied her face, then smiled, the rare, genuine kind that reached his eyes. Then let's hope hope is enough. Celine's hands moved slowly, reverently. The prophecy spoke of choice. You both chose mercy. The world will remember. Lena looked out over the awakening city. The bells rang, carrying through streets that hadn't seen sunlight in centuries. She whispered, almost to herself, the dawn doesn't seem so fragile anymore. Darius glanced toward the horizon. It never was. It was just waiting for someone brave enough to reach it. Peace had a strange sound in the Crimson Court. It wasn't silence exactly, more like the hush between two breaths, a calm so delicate that one wrong word could break it. A week had passed since the rebellion's surrender. The city, once hidden from the world, now glimmered under full daylight. Vampires walked openly in the streets, their eyes shielded with silver-lined lenses. Humans from nearby towns crossed the old borders, carrying trade goods and questions. And Lena, the mortal who had spoken the oath, had become a living myth. Everywhere she went, people bowed their heads. She didn't know how to react, she wasn't a queen, she wasn't even sure she was fully human anymore. She still flinched when someone called her Lady Marquez instead of Miss. The Queen's garden had become her refuge. Roses bloomed brighter there now, bathed in real sunlight. It was said the plants responded to the oath's renewal, thriving in its balance. That morning, Lena sat on a marble bench, reading her grandmother's journal again. Most of it had burned during the chaos, but the remaining pages were still alive with meaning. She traced a single line near the end: peace will come with pain, and when both sides bleed, the world will heal. Darius found her there, as he often did. He no longer wore his crown, only a dark tunic and gloves. Without armor, he looked younger, almost human. You should be resting, he said. I'm not good at resting, she replied, closing the book. Every time I stop moving, I start thinking about everything that could still go wrong. He sat beside her, the bench creaking faintly under his weight. You sound like a ruler already. She gave him a sidelong glance. Don't start. The court still barely tolerates me. Half of them think I'm some kind of witch. Let them think it, Darius said. Fear keeps their tongues honest. Lena smiled faintly. That's your answer to everything, isn't it? Fear. He met her gaze. It kept my people alive for centuries. But now, he exhaled, looking toward the rising sun. Now I'm not sure it should. They sat in silence for a while, the air warm and filled with birdsong. For once, the castle didn't feel haunted. Then a shadow passed across the courtyard, a falcon descending to the stone railing. A message tube gleamed against its leg. Darius rose immediately, unfastening it. His expression hardened as he read. Scouts found something beyond the valley. Old ruins moving, as if alive. Lena frowned. Moving? He handed her the parchment. The words were hastily written, smeared with dirt, dark sigils awakened in the wastelands. Energy identical to the oath. Possible remnant of Vaughn's spell. Her blood went cold. His gone. We saw him turn to dust. Darius shook his head. Dust doesn't always mean death. The Darks were masters of division, fragments of their souls bound into relics. If one survived. Then he could return, Lena finished quietly. A breeze rustled through the roses, scattering petals across the bench. Darius looked toward the horizon. If the remnants of the old power awaken again, we'll have to finish what our ancestors began, completely. And if we don't? He turned to her. Then the oath breaks a second time. And this time, it won't mend. That night, the council met again, fewer voices now, but still divided. Some wanted to send armies to scour the wastelands, others argued for isolation. Lena stood beside the queen, listening, silent until Celine touched her shoulder. "Speak," the queen signed. "They will not listen to me, but they will listen to you." Lena looked around the chamber. "We can't fight shadows with swords. Whatever's stirring out there isn't an army, it's the echo of magic. If we go charging in, we'll feed it." Brax scowled. "You speak as though you know the enemy's mind." "I know fear when I see it," she said sharply. "And that's what's keeping you alive, fear of change. But fear can't rebuild a world. The oath was meant to connect us. So that's what we do, we go together." Darius nodded. "A joint expedition, human and vampire. The oath's power will protect those who carry both lines." Murmurs spread through the room. Celine smiled faintly, signing, "Then let the world see what unity truly means." By dawn, preparations were already underway. Darius commanded a small group of soldiers, Lena gathered scholars and human volunteers from the nearby villages. Together they rode toward the grey hills that marked the border between worlds, the place where the curse had once begun. The journey took 2 days. The land grew barren the farther they went, stripped of color and life. By the third sunset, even the air smelled wrong, dry, metallic, faintly burning. At last, they reached it, a canyon filled with ancient stones carved in spirals, glowing faintly red. At its center lay a single black monolith, cracked and humming like a heartbeat. Lena felt it immediately, the same power she'd felt at the altar, but twisted, hungry. "This is what's left of the old oath," Darius said quietly. "Vaughn must have bound a piece of himself to it before he died." Lena stepped closer, her heart pounding. "It's calling to the blood." "Don't answer," he warned. "I'm not," she said, though her hand had already risen toward the monolith. "It's answering me." The symbols flared brighter. The ground vibrated beneath their feet. Darius drew his sword, but it was too late. The air split with a sound like tearing metal. A figure stepped from the fissure, not Vaughn's full form, but a shadow of him, his eyes burning red. His voice was nothing but echo and hatred. "You thought you could erase me," it said. "But as long as one drop of royal blood remains, I endure." Darius stepped between it and Lena. "Then we'll erase that too." The shadow laughed. "You can't destroy me without destroying yourself. We share the same line, the same curse." Lena's pulse thundered. The oath's words stirred inside her, whispering, "Balance through sacrifice." She realized what it meant, why her grandmother had written, "Peace will come with pain." "Darius," she whispered, "the prophecy needs a choice." He turned to her, understanding dawning in his eyes. "No. Yes. One of the lines must break for the other to live. I won't let you. It's not your choice this time." Before he could stop her, she stepped into the circle of light, placing her hand on the monolith. The world seemed to explode, color, sound, pain all blending into one. She saw flashes, her grandmother signing the oath, the first king bleeding onto the altar, the queen's tears centuries ago. The shadow screamed, its shape unraveling in the brilliance. Then, silence. When the light faded, the monolith had turned to ash. Lena collapsed. Darius caught her before she hit the ground. Her eyes fluttered open, silver glinting in the irises. "Did it work?" she whispered. He nodded, voice breaking. "Yes. It's over." Her smile was faint. "Then let it stay that way." And her hand went still in his. The sky was weeping when they brought her back. Soft rain fell over the city, washing the soot from the towers, turning the cobblestones into mirrors. Crowds lined the streets in silence as the queen and her son led the procession. Lena's body lay wrapped in pale silk, her grandmother's pendant clasped over her heart. She looked peaceful, as though she were only dreaming. They buried her in the queen's garden, beneath the oldest rose tree. The air was heavy with the scent of rain and earth. Darius stood beside the grave long after everyone else had gone. His cloak was soaked, but he didn't move. His mother's hand rested briefly on his shoulder before she turned to leave him alone. For hours, he said nothing. Then finally, he spoke quietly to the roses. "You were right, Lena. Peace never comes easy." He knelt, placing a small crystal vial on the soil, a drop of his own blood inside. "By word and blood, peace or ruin, we chose the dawn. And you kept that promise for both of us." As he stood, sunlight broke through the clouds, touching the petals with gold. The queen watched from the balcony above, her expression unreadable. "Is she gone?" she asked softly when he joined her. He nodded. "Her body, yes. But the oath lives." Celine's hands moved in slow, graceful signs. "Then so does she." Weeks passed. The world outside the valley began to change. The hidden city of vampires revealed itself to the human kingdoms, not with war but with emissaries. Trade caravans crossed the borders under banners of the new oath, a silver rose on a crimson field. The humans called it the Dawn Treaty. In the castle, Darius ruled differently now. He opened the court to human scholars, rebuilt the ruined libraries, and restored the Hall of Oaths. Every decree began with a single phrase carved into the marble above the throne: "By word and blood, we stand." And sometimes, when he walked the halls alone at night, he could swear he heard a whisper following him, a familiar voice, soft and steady. "Don't let it fade." He would stop, close his eyes, and answer quietly, "Never." One morning, months later, he found the queen in her garden, kneeling beside the rose tree. The blossoms had changed color, once red, now pale silver at their tips. "It's her," Celine signed. "The oath keeps its own." Darius smiled faintly. "She always liked silver better than red." "The prophecy spoke of 2 lines," Celine signed. "But perhaps it never meant blood and words. Perhaps it meant life and memory." He looked toward the horizon where dawn burned bright. "Then both still stand." That evening, as the sun set, he climbed the tallest tower and looked out across the land, a world reborn in uneasy peace. From here, he could see humans and vampires walking the same streets, trading, talking, even laughing. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. The wind shifted, carrying a faint sound. It wasn't words, but melody, a whisper of the silent tongue woven through the air, gentle and eternal. He smiled. "Still watching me, aren't you?" No answer came, but the roses far below swayed in the wind as though bowing. He turned his face toward the sunset. "Then watch well. We'll make it last this time." And as the first stars appeared above the city, the crimson court, once shrouded in shadow, stood open beneath the full light of the moon and the rising dawn, bound forever by the voice of a mortal girl who had dared to speak the forgotten tongue. And that, my friends, is how a shy waitress changed the fate of 2 worlds with nothing but her courage and a forgotten language. If that story pulled you into the shadows and left you craving more, don't let the oath end here. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What would you choose if the prophecy demanded a sacrifice? Hit that like button if you felt the tension, subscribe for the next dark legend waiting to rise, and ring the bell so you never miss when the night speaks again. Until then, remember, some words are powerful enough to rewrite destiny.